the oldest, so I have yeah, you're shocked, right? I have a lot of these are firstborn tendencies.
Yeah, there could be, but I'll say I know plenty of other people who are like, I'm the youngest, and I can say I have, firstborn tendencies too. So I have not analyzed that. It's not, it hasn't, albeit, to be honest, it has been a passion of mine. But, Lori, if you want to do that, I'm happy to figure things out. Oh, good. So like I said, I think we can get you out of here about 4:30. I think Randy was thinking 4:30 too, and I think that works well. So based on what I wanted to go over with today. But it doesn't mean that for those of you who are overachievers and have more questions for me after, I'm happy to talk through that. Eric's like, absolutely not. Okay. So the next part I want to say is, so what we do is we do some analysis. And what we do is we want to first talk about the most common strengths for this group. And this typically, we call this our culture slide. This says what to expect of this group. Now I realize some of you are newer, so this may or may not resonate with you. And Georgia, I'm willing to send the PowerPoint down to all of you.
Thank you.
Oh, now you tell me?
Were you taking pictures the whole time?
The whole time. No, I wasn't.
Did I miss that? Usually I know what's that. All right. So 8 of you have belief, 8 of you have learner, 7 of you have achiever, 7 have relator, and 6 have arranger, and 6 have responsibility. Now, what this shows us, so the first thing is it says the top 6 strengths accounts for 47.7% of the team's total strengths. This really says that this group is pretty homogeneous, that there's a lot of common strengths here. What this could mean is, could there be a potential for some groupthink? We all come to the decision almost too quickly at times. I'm not saying that could happen, but it's something to be aware of. Now, I'm not saying that we need to switch people out, add people in. We just want to be aware that there are a lot of strengths that are highly represented here, which means that the rest of the 50%, the 53% of the strengths, there aren't very many, right? Some of you stood up alone. It's knowing that, all right, you're the only one with that strength. What this means is we want to make sure that we're really leveraging you when you're the only one with the strength. So this is, but I want you to tell me, I'm going to read this to you. This is, based on these 6 strengths, this is what we can see. You're great at checking things off the list and finishing everything. We'll start and finish things that you take personal accountability for and are aligned with your values. You may say yes to everything rather than the right thing. You're able to work well in a VUCA environment. Remember, VUCA is volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous situations. You enjoy working in a variety of tasks and providing solutions to complex situations. You're energized by mastering new things and moving forward on specific, high-level, and well-defined projects. You like to work in close collegial environments with people you have known for a long period of time or you get to know deeply. You may have trouble welcoming new people into the inner circle. I'm going to pause there. What do you think of that? Maybe those of you who've been here longer.
Well, I don't know if it's because I've been here longer or not, although I guess I'm the board, I'm the longest representative.
Yeah.
But I think there's 2 kind of separate groups in the room when you think about like the board versus the administration. Mm-hmm. And so I think not looking at us entirely as a whole, I mean, not that we don't need to leverage the strengths and weaknesses of each, but I think it'd be interesting how much overlap is it between the board versus the administration.
Yeah. I can actually run 2 different reports for you and just share it with everybody afterward. I can't do it now, but I'd be happy to give that to you. Because there are a couple of things that I was seeing on the board versus the staff as well. All right.
I think that's
Good,
pretty.
Skylar.
Oh, sorry. That was good. That's a great idea.
That was
I was just going to say, I think this is a strong definition of a solid group to start something, which is what this is. Like, we're still very much in startup mode, though we're proud to be wrapping up year 4.
Yeah.
This is, next year will be the first year that isn't brand new. Next year is the first year that's repetitive in the sense that we're a full K-12 institution. And yet at the same time, we have to switch a bunch of things up in order to maintain that. And so it will be new because we're adjusting and adapting to a lot of certain things. But on the whole, this has been a VUCA environment. This is a VUCA environment.
Absolutely.
And so that description, I'm thankful for, because I think it's a powerful component of why this team has been able to prosper LCCA as successfully as we have thus far.
Absolutely. It's probably what drew those of you who have VUCA to want to be here, to say, I can be a change agent. And yeah, next year, right, like you said, it's not new, right? It's repeating now. There's still going to be challenges, and you have to make sure you're still being challenged, so you're not saying, well, I'm looking for a challenge elsewhere. But that's great to say, like, maybe this is why I was attracted to this. Absolutely. Great. The other thing I want to point out here, it just says, make sure we want to partner with traction, seeing, and problem identification. So again, we want to make sure we're representing all 8 categories, so we don't have any bottlenecks there. And now I'll get to another slide that talks about some of those as well. But it's the idea that we want that well-balanced machine, or well-balanced team. The other thing I want to point out that I didn't really talk about before, but this last sentence that I read, may have trouble welcoming new people into the inner circle. So again, when we have a team that has a lot of relators, again, sometimes it's hard for us as relators to start new relationships, new partnerships, new conversations, right? So people who have, if a team has a lot of relators, we tend to build high imaginary walls, and there can be an appearance of cliques, whether we're trying to have cliques or not. Because relators, we gravitate towards the people we already know. So new people coming in, again, new to the board, can feel like, oh, I don't feel like I've had good conversations with certain people, and being aware of that. I'm not saying it's always going to be there, but being aware that that could be a perception, and being aware of it to say, okay, let's make sure we welcome that. Let's make sure we're leveraging Georgia and Skyland, right, to welcome those people in and not feel like there's cliques. What are you saying about me? Nothing.
I'll never tell.
Here.
Very positive.
All right. Well, very good. Any other thoughts or questions on this?
I'd say, I wonder, and I hope everyone takes this correctly, because I don't intend to say something negative in a moment. But this description of us was, I believe, as Margaret said, instrumental in getting us to this point. I wonder if this same combination and this same ratio is the most optimal to take us into strategic planning. So what I mean by that is, I think we should all be aware of the missing things, or the things that aren't on that top of that list, that could help us do things that are forward-looking into the future in strategic planning. I hope everyone takes that how I intended.
I think I might be asking the same question, but so now what? So we've identified this is where we land, this is what is. How do we optimize that to make sure that, as this group charters these uncharted waters, to make sure that it is as optimal and productive as?
Absolutely. Well, I'd pay you for asking that question, but you were 2 slides too fast. So one thing I'm going to point out, so on the handout that you guys have, I page 8-ish or so, this is the frequency, right? So this is just, I'm going to answer Georgia's question.
Can I be a futurist now?
Yes.
I want to be like John.
So this shows, right, we talked about the learner, the achiever, the belief, all these high ones, right? But I just want to point out some of these ones that are lower, right? Like I was saying, the other 53%, there's somewhere only 2 of you, only 0 of you, 1 of you have these strengths. And actually, I think I can segue into this conversation now. Being aware of the strengths that you don't have, just to say, maybe you're not bringing somebody else on the board. I'm not suggesting that, but maybe you might identify, like, I bet so-and-so, who's another teacher, or somebody in your sphere of influence has one of these strengths. Maybe I can just tap into them and ask them a question, and then I can take it back to the team. Okay, that's how we're using that. And then for those of you who only have 1 strength, right, you're the only one that has the 1 strength in that versus everybody else, whether it's you have restorative, you have positivity, you have input, individualization, we want to make sure that we're leveraging you. Okay? So that gets to a little bit what you're saying, Eric, a little bit what you're saying, Georgia, to say, let's make sure that we're leveraging the strengths that we currently have, even if it's just the 1 of you, okay? And then what I wanted to say is, well, actually, it kind of goes back and forth. When I think of strategic planning, we're all valuable, okay? I just want to point that out. But when we think of strategic planning, we're thinking forward thinking. We're thinking strategic plan, 1, 3, 5+ years. So some of us, we get excited about that. Some of us are like, It's gonna be a draining 2 days, okay? I especially wanna make sure that we're tapping into the two of you who have strategic. So I think you and Tom, Margaret, right? So you two have strategic. So we really wanna especially hear from the two of you, from your thoughts on where you wanna be a couple years from now. And then the futuristic, being John and I don't know who else? Eric. Okay, thank you. Being futuristic, to say where do we wanna be 5, 10 plus years? Again, as long as we have some representation, we wanna make sure we're leveraging those thoughts. So then, we have a gap analysis. So if we had a completely well-balanced team, this is page, I think, 9 or 10, what page is that? 9? Thank you. So on page 9, this is on here as well. So this is just a simple gap analysis. So if we had an entire team that was well-balanced, this index number would be at 90. So we will, ideally we want 90% or above. Now, I'll explain where these numbers come from. So with lifestyle, there are 7 strengths in lifestyle. 7 divided by 34 total strengths equals 20.6, right? Now, the actual is what this team is. And because some categories have 2, 3, 7, and so on, we want to try to get to a same denominator, right? So we want to get to the index to a 100-point scale. So that's the math. If you have more questions on that, I'm happy to go over that. But basically, we're looking at the index numbers here, and we want that to be at 90% or better. Anything lower than 90 says there may be a little bit of a deficiency. It might get in the way, right? This might be where you bottleneck. So what this shows is problem solving is at 69%. Interpersonal is at 77. Seeing is at 60. And traction is at 51. Yes?
Does the law of large numbers apply, meaning the larger the group, that you get closer to 1 on the index or 100 on the index, or is there some that are in a large group still that you're usually deficient in?
In a large group, you can still be deficient. Yeah. Good question. So with this, what I would say is, we're sharing data with you. And it's up to you to decide how helpful this is, if this gives you some aha moments or just helps you to prepare going forward. And with the strategic planning, I think having this, I say, hang on to this, bring this to the strategic plan. I'll get those other 2 reports for you too to understand this. This is not doom and gloom, okay? This is not, oh, this is terrible, you guys are never gonna get it done, okay? What this tells me on paper is you are high drivers. You focus on the day-to-day. What's on my list? I gotta get this done. What's in front of me? What's the emergency? What's the child? What's the parent? What's going on that I have to address right now, right? That list is never ending. So what this tells me is you're probably living in that. And then lifestyle, right, it's important for you. Your beliefs are important. Your positivity, your discipline, how you want to live your life is important to you. Wild cards, you're practically double, okay? So learners, you can mimic other strengths. Okay, so with all the learners in here, you can say, oh, well, we're low in some of these categories. I'll learn how to do it. I'll figure it out, right? So that's going to be helpful. Your problem identification tells me that at certain points, you're feeling like, I'm so busy, and if only I had time to do this, it would be better, right? We identify what the issue is, but we go right back into, I just have so much stuff on my plate, I have to get it done. That might be the habit we get into. This could say, okay, if we could switch our habits, which take time, we're going to still identify the issue, those of you with problem identification, and you're going to say, okay, I'm going to intentionally force time in my day, and I'm going to tap into the problem solvers in this room to say, what should we be doing? What is the most efficient based on resources, based on budget, based on time? And then I want to intentionally tap into those of you who have traction to say, this is what I would do, and this is step 1, 2, and 3, and we're going to just do one key thing every school year, one key thing every semester, quarter, whatever it is, in bite-sized chunks. It's going to be more work up front, but it's going to save us a lot of time in the long run, right? And then your driving is going to keep kicking in, getting things done. We also want to be careful that your seeing strengths are also always making sure you're doing things in alignment at the right time and place. And your interpersonal, thinking about the people in this room, the students, the faculty, the families. I'm going to pause there because I feel like that's a lot to process. And I feel like I might be losing some of you, like, what did she just say?
I'm wondering Skylar's question on this slide as well. If you break it, can we do a gap analysis on administrative team?
Mhm. Oh, yeah, it'll be all this.
Okay.
Everything you have in your hand, I'll replicate, one for the board, one
Okay.
for the staff.
Great.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, again, the way forward, what we would say is, again, this is not doom and gloom. We've worked with organizations where a category will have 0, right? And it's like, we might want to add somebody to the team. I'm not saying we have to add anybody to this team, but if we know that we're the lowest in traction and seeing, are there people that we know we could just tap into? Hey, from your expertise, from your strengths, I would love to hear your perspective, right? They don't have to be on the team 24/7, but we especially want to make sure we're tapping into those of you that do have those strengths. And then we want to tap into your learner, because learners can say, you know what? I've been trying to do better at traction. Let me read a couple books, and I'm going to bring in some things that I think are going to be helpful for us. Does that make sense? Any other questions or thoughts on that? And did I answer your question fully, Skylar?
So, I mean, presumably it's either you or the betas of which like you're leveraging off of. You have many sort of results across different clients, organizations, whatever it is. So, like, do you have sort of like statistically driven roadmap for how this goes? Like, if you say, okay, our organization, the distribution of skill sets or whatever it is what it is, and then you have something where it says, okay, so then you guys should function kind of this way, or like it's more like I'm curious, like so how's this supposed to work going forward? Like, it's great to be aware as to like what all this sort of means and all this, but then over the next 16 hours, like how's is it like you task someone, you say, hey, you're supposed to mediate this thing, you kind of follow this roadmap, or like what? How does it work? How does this then get applied?
Are you talking specifically about strategic planning or just in general?
Sure, either.
Okay. So one thing I would say, so the way forward, what we do with this is, like I said, this is information. A lot of times organizations we work with, when we see numbers like this, especially if they're really skewed, right? I don't look at this as awful, okay? I don't know how you feel about it when you look at it, or you're like, I still need to process it. But when I see a team that has 0 traction, or that has 0 problem identification, they're like, that makes so much sense, right? So really, it's more, I'm sharing data with you, and you guys would tell me if it seems valid, if you see how it shows up at times. If you see that, yeah, you know what, we get really focused on the day-to-day, that we know that there's a problem, but we don't solve it because we just feel like we don't have the capacity to do that. So a lot of times, John, to answer your question, it's we take this to say, okay, let's be more intentional in our conversations of who we're tapping into for different things, or tapping into other people to bring into the team if they're not here. Now, obviously for this team, you might say, well, nobody else has taken the assessment, so that could be a potential next step for some people. For the strategic plan, the way that we're going to do it, we have a process that you'll all follow. Again, our process is going to help you with the traction, right? We're coming in from the outside. We're going to help you write that plan, meaning we're going to give you the process. We're not going to write the plan for you. So we're giving you that artificial traction. We're giving you that external traction to get it started. And then guess what? Once the plan is done, you're drivers. You're going to get it done, right? We're gonna follow, help you throughout that process. And then we're gonna ask questions, right? Now, I'm not gonna be a part of that process. The rest of my team will, but they're gonna come in and they're gonna say, hey, this is a good idea, but those of you with seeing strengths, I want to tap into you. What are you seeing, right? Did you have enough time to share thoughts, right? Context, futuristic, strategic, analytical, all that connectedness, right? Really tapping into Eric's connectedness to say, okay, does that really cover anything? Are we forgetting anybody? So we're going to make sure that our team is going to make sure we're calling on some of you. Now, again, you don't have to wait for us to call on you, but we want to make sure that we're hearing from your particular perspective. Does that make sense? Any follow-up question on that, John?
No, not yet.
Not yet, okay.
Probably then.
All right, well, very good. Well, that is everything that I wanted to make sure we covered today. My hope, really to piggyback off of what John said, is this isn't a one and done, right? This is nice, but let's move on to the day-to-day. It's how can we use this to take action? So the reason we use this before the strategic planning process is, again, so you all have a better understanding of each other, to say, hey, who are good partner-up opportunities for me? But the first step in really, being able to make this a part of your culture is, the one-on-ones where it's let's think about a strengths first mindset. Who you are, the gifts you have, and who you can partner up with. So post your strengths. Let people see what they are. So we can start praising people for using their strengths and encouraging them to leverage them even more. So whether it's putting it on your email signature, your desk, whatever that looks like, because now people start to ask you what that means. So now you have to know, right? It's like, oh, I don't remember how to describe this strength, Well, now that's my homework for you to understand who you are, how you show up, so you can communicate that to other people. So feel free, at board meetings, if you can add a couple minutes of, how did you see somebody using their strengths or sharing how you're using them and make sure you're keeping that living. And I just want to remind you, there's a slide. This is the last page in your team report or your individual report when you do your one-on-one. Just a reminder, our hope is that you reflect on this. Pay attention to what energizes you and do more of it. The things that exhaust you, have those candid conversations with your leader or the board to say, I'm not best suited for this, but I would love to do this. So that's how you really build that strengths first mindset for you and a strengths first culture at LCCA.
Is there any concern that you shy away from something because we don't have the right person for this? Does that become an excuse?
You want to make sure it doesn't. It absolutely could. I always tell people, don't think that because you don't have a strength that you're like, oh, sorry, Margaret, I'm not going to do it. Right? I always tell people, I'm not giving you permission to stop doing everything you don't like, but having those open conversations, right? So in the example I gave about the Excel spreadsheet and reading, right, with me and my business partner, I still have to do the reading, but if he can leverage it, if we can be creative about it, let's do that if we can. If we can't, that is your job, right? That is part of your job description right now. So we do want to make sure that it is not a blind spot or it's not used as an excuse. Good question.
So since you are wrapping up, and I wasn't sure if you were, but
Yeah.
so the next step in the strategic planning. So okay, you have a series of questions. What could you just give? It's usually just helpful to have a little bit of context before going into things without letting it be a surprise.
Sure.
So how does your process work? So is it you got a set of questions that are preceding all this stuff for us? Does that change depending on different companies or different organizations are going to come with different mixes? Do you change the questions to which you ask for those before the strategy session to do, or is it it's always the same? And then whatever it is, so what are we going to be answering or
Yeah, I apologize. I think we
surveying?
did that before you got here this
Oh, okay.
morning. So we're going to send you a form that we're going to ask you to fill out. The first question is going to say, what do you believe are the top 2 or 3 challenges?
Oh, that's okay. That's
Oh,
the
you were here.
okay.
Okay,
Yeah,
sorry.
yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so it's the challenges,
Okay.
the opportunities, and the target goals.
Right.
That's the same whether it's a school, whether it's a business, whether it's a
Yeah.
nonprofit.
Right.
And you're going to answer that however you want. So based on your experience, based on conversations you've had. So what we want is everybody to give their feedback on that. And then for the 12-hour program, the first couple hours, we are going to list off every single thing that everybody said. And you're going to rate it on a 4-point scale. 4 being you absolutely, this is something we need to address. And 1 being this isn't really important. And you can answer 1, 2, 3, 4 as many times as you want. And basically that helps us get the rating system. So then we're going to see your top 10 or so, 10, 15 that you rated. And then we're going to hang on to that. And then we're going to get into your strategic plan to say, where do you want to be long range, your target 5 or 6 year goals. And we're going to talk through that. And we're going to have those pre-populated based on what you all said. And there's going to be dialogue, right? There's going to be at times where you guys kind of go on a tangent. And then we're going to bring you back. We're going to let you talk, right? We're just going to be guides on the side. We're not making any decisions for you. We're just guiding you through the process. So you're going to define what those goals are. We always say less is more. And then we're going to backfill from the 5 or so, 5 or 6 years. And then we're going to backfill to say, where do we want to be 3 years from now? Then 1 year from now? Then what's the next 90-day goal that we have? And then when we get done with all of that, we're going to say, okay, are we comfortable? A lot of discussion through all this. And then we're going to go back to the challenges and opportunities and read the top ones and say, have we addressed all of them? And if we get to 1 or 2 that we haven't, now we have to build it into the plan. So it's the opportunity for every single person in this room to have a voice, to give that feedback. Now I know somebody is only there for the second day. Tom, okay. So unfortunately, he's not going to be able to rank them, but he's going to at least give his opinion on the top challenges, opportunities, and goals. Does that help?
And you're not going to be there?
I will not be there.
Okay.
Yeah, 2 other people from my team will be there. I focus more on the strengths. So,
That's a loaded precursor.
yeah.
Just kidding.
Okay.
They're a lot more talented. So we actually break up what we do based on strengths. So I love to work on strengths. Strategic planning is draining for me. I actually do work on it with teams. So we always send 2 people. One person is a facilitator and one person is scribing. So I do the scribing, but it's not necessarily my favorite thing. So that's how if we're able to divide it up based on what we enjoy doing, that's what we try to do. So we try to practice what we preach. Great. Any other questions? I do have one more assignment. I would love to just go around the room and ask you, maybe what was your biggest takeaway, or what is an action you're ready to take based on our conversation today? Possibly something you learned. And like before, I will open it up to whoever wants to volunteer first. So I'm not picking up somebody who's like, I need time to process. And then you'll get to pick the person. Oh, Randy?
I'll just say, like, looking at the board, we're probably going to need to add another board member here before long. So using this, once we get our kind of data divided, to maybe help inform who that right board member would be.
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you.
I think as we talk about strategic planning for me, it's we have the right butts in the right seats.
Yeah. All right. Who else wants to go?
I'm really appreciative of just seeing what everybody else's strengths are and understanding how like it makes so much sense, or also like, oh, I didn't know that, I hadn't discovered that about him or her yet. So just starting to brainstorm ways of tapping into the different strengths of the people on this team.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm not a problem identifier, so it's not surprising that this next task is seeming a little daunting to me. So probably needs to have some conversations before thinking about the problems.
Yeah, absolutely.
I agree with Margaret that I really like this chart especially. I like to see what we all have in common, how we can pull the strengths from other people and work forward that way too.
Thank you. Lori?
I liked page 9 and just kind of highlighting how the whole group is, and like who we can tap into, where you fall in the smaller percentage. And then yes, it is really interesting seeing the different array of strengths in people.
Thank you. John?
Let's see, I think, well, something, I really enjoy that Eric spoke a lot. I don't know Eric that well, even though I've been part of the school, but like as a parent for like 4 years. That was actually really good. I think it was helpful to just see how people are, like where everyone individually, like kind of behavior biased, where you're, and I think that'll be helpful if we're going through group discussions and how to mediate those things towards being productive, to where things are going to be like, and like, like if you, like how you need to think about which I think is part of the exercise. You're trying to like show where people kind of sit and how to get those things to meld together, be mindful as to how we can work together to draw out things that need to be, like one off the top of my head, it's like, in some ways, Margaret is our school leader. In some ways, like, now she's not necessarily biased towards being futuristic, the futurists, but that's kind of part of the thing. So, it's like, okay, it's like help someone, not to pick on it, it's just, it's like to try to get those type of things where, you try to draw out the viewpoints, even though someone may not be drawn to wanting to give that perspective on that issue. But, so that was just helpful to see where everyone sits.
Yeah, absolutely. Right? Some of you enjoy talking, right? Some of you are like, I don't want to talk if I don't have to, right? And it's understanding that to say, hey, I want to give people time to process if they need time to process. So you let them know ahead of the meeting, right? So if you still have questions on prepping for the strategic plan, let us know so we can give you that information ahead of the time. But yeah, and it's for us to know strengths to say, all right, you haven't talked a lot. I would love to hear your perspective, right? I do value your perspective. So encouraging some of that too. All right. Ellen?
Yeah, I also thought taking what Randy had thought about this could help in kind of narrowing down on another board member, like how could we complement each other with that? But I was also, like, our deficits really aren't deficits.
Yeah.
Opportunities,
Yeah.
like, I thought we'd have more, not to be negative about us, but like, we're fairly well-rounded.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was kind of impressed by us.
Definitely. You represent every category.
Yeah.
That's your takeaway, you're impressed by us?
Well, I was.
Now she's positive.
Yeah. Well, we only had 4 where we had nobody.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's pretty good. We're not that big of a group.
That's true.
Georgia?
I agree with, you kind of stole my thunder about the adding to the board and, you know, what that puzzle piece looks like. But I would say beyond that it's very valuable as we live in our day-to-day, very busy lives, everyone around this table. It's good to come back to doing something like this and seeing the value that it has and refocusing everyone is not all the same.
Yeah.
And to, you know, exercise, you know, I love the whole positive strengths instead of weaknesses and why this is beneficial to the goal that we have as a whole in wanting to move and advance forward. So it's very valuable and it's a delight to get to know everybody on a different level and all these assumptions or not assumptions, assessments.
Yeah.
That's that ESL, see? So this was very good
Thank you.
and good reminder for all of us.
Eric?
Biggest takeaway, I think the thing I'm most encouraged by is the intentionality that we're taking. I believe that to move this school forward is going to take definitely a team effort, and the more we can coordinate that effort and focus our strengths to set this place up for the best chance it has to be something that outlives all of us. That's very exciting, and I can't wait to start talking about the future on that intentional level.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much. I have one closing thought. I know we're going over. Is that okay? You're like, no, it's not okay. So my hope is that this helps you think about taking the word weakness out of your vocabulary and replacing it with partner up opportunities. But I have a question for you. So Skylar, can you tell me what's all on here? What different tools are in here?
Bottle opener, corkscrew, screwdriver, nail file, knife, another bottle opener, scissors.
Thank you. Does anybody here drink wine? Or know somebody who drinks wine? Okay. I was at the gala, so I know that you do. All right. If you were to open up a bottle of wine that has a cork in it, what are you going to use on this tool? Why are you going to use a corkscrew?
That's what it's made for.
It's what it's made for, right? So I know some of you were like, oh, I want to be like John. I want to be like so-and-so, right? You're a tool in a good way.
You get t-shirts?
Yeah, I totally. You're a tool.
In a good way.
And the
right?
sharpest tool.
You have unique strengths,
Yeah.
right? Your unique gifts. So if we didn't have the corkscrew, we might figure out how to open up that bottle of wine, right? You may want to be a part of a certain aspect of the team, a certain project, or feeling like there's this deficit. But understand you have unique gifts. So understand that this is what you bring, but it's not everything, right? Who can you partner up with? I love that you've already talked about that. You know, again, Margaret saying, I'm, you know, in the hiring process, I'm finding I want people who are different than me. They're going to complement me. So really, it's to say, let's make sure we continue to build that well-balanced team, finding people that have different strengths than us. So rather than, you know, having us all be cookie cutter and alike. And so then we can really tackle this project and go the right direction as quickly and as efficiently as possible. And if you can't do it, let's find that partner up opportunity so we can. So with that, I want to thank everybody for today.
Thank
I'm sorry I went a little long.